If your child is struggling with a chronic neurological disorder like ADHD, autism, sensory processing disorder, anxiety, any of those things, those are all under the umbrella of neurological disorders, then one thing is likely true. You as a parent, you are likely doing everything you can to look for ways to help your child succeed, and also you're looking for reasons as to what caused your child's struggles. And if that's you, if you're up Googling every night and you're up late at night watching webinars and in support groups on Facebook, and you're taking your kids to OTs and PTs and therapists and neurologists, and you're doing all kinds of detoxing and diet, changes and probiotics and essential oils and removing red dyes, and you're doing all these things, all of those things are crazy beneficial to help your child succeed. But there's one thing that is oftentimes left out of the picture that is one of the most important things to help your child get on that right track, and that is neurologically focused chiropractic care. And in this video, I'm going to talk about, number one, what causes the root cause of these neurological disorders in the majority of cases, and also a way that you can come and learn more about this topic and how neurologically focused chiropractic care fits into this whole paradigm to helping your child reach a level of success and get pointed in the right direction in their life. So I want to start by talking about the perfect storm. Now, that's what I talk about. That's the title of this workshop that I do, that we included the link to in this description. But the perfect storm workshop is a free workshop that I'm going to dig into greater detail about what I'm going to talk about today. But the perfect storm is, if you watch the movie The Perfect Storm is a movie about a massive weather event, right? It wreaked havoc all over the land. I mean, flooding and storms and all that stuff. And if you know anything about that, the cause of that perfect storm, it wasn't just one thing that caused that perfect storm. It was a bunch of things that added up, and it brewed this perfect storm of events that caused this massive weather pattern. Now, when I talk about the perfect storm as it relates to these neurological disorders, I'm not talking about a perfect weather storm. I'm talking about a perfect neurological storm, okay? And that's what all of these sensory issues are. It is simply a imbalanced central nervous system. So, when I would sit down with a parent and I'm talking with a parent about their child's health history, I noticed that it didn't matter, and this was all the way back to 10 years ago when I started working with kids. It didn't matter what the diagnosis was, whether it was autism or ADHD or sensory processing disorder. The diagnoses were different for everybody. An imbalanced nervous system expresses itself differently for each person, in other words. But what I did notice is when I would sit down and I would listen to the parents tell their story, tell the kids' health history, I noticed that I found a lot of the same commonalities in their health history. And these things are what I learned and kind of created to make is the result of brewing the ingredients to brew this perfect neurological storm. So as I list these things that I'm going to tell you here in a second, they are all of these ingredients to cause this perfect storm. And I still hear all of these things to this day over and over again. All right. And all of these things that I'm going to mention here and list for you are generally the same thing. They're all stress. They're all a type of stress that kids go through. See, when we think of stress as adults, we think of, financial stress or stress at work or relationship stress, which is a stress. But there's, as it pertains to kids, there are all different types of stress that are oftentimes overlooked. The first one is stress during pregnancy. So, in other words, any stress that the mom is going through during pregnancy, the baby is experiencing that stress as well. And sometimes it's good stress. It doesn't have to be bad stress, like losing your job or working full time or you're in a bad relationship. Yes, those stresses affect mom and affect the baby's stress as well. But it could be good stress. It could be you just bought a new house and you're moving in and you're trying to get the nursery ready before the baby comes, or you just got a new job, or you just got married, or you just whatever. all of those things, any stress that mom goes through, baby is going through as well. So, oftentimes, when you have a stressful pregnancy, what does that lead to? That leads to a stressful birth and delivery. And the birth and delivery in general is a stress on the body, okay? Especially the baby's head and upper neck area. Now, the upper neck area is crucial for nervous system development because one thing that's often overlooked, and again, I go into this in more detail in the workshop, is motion of the spine calms the brain. So when you have a misalignment or what I call a subluxation of the spine, that decreases the input, the calming input to the brain. And the brain gets shifted into a stressed out state when you have a misalignment in the spine, especially that upper neck area. Now, when we talk about the birth process, a normal vaginal delivery is 40 to 60 pounds of pulling and tugging on the baby's head and neck. So, any added intervention on top of that, C-section delivery, vacuum extraction, forceps delivery, induced labor, cord wrapped around the neck, getting stuck in the pelvis and having to have an emergency C-section, all of those things increase the amount of tension and stress on the baby's upper cervical spine. And when you have stress in that upper cervical spine, that shifts the baby into an even more stressed out, imbalanced central nervous system state. And then when you have a stressful pregnancy that leads to a stressful birth and delivery, oftentimes that leads to a stressed, colicky, fussy baby. So things that I would often hear in the history after the birth, so on top of a stressful pregnancy and a stressful birth and delivery, oftentimes I'll hear from a parent, yeah, as a baby, they were really fussy, they were really colicky, they barely slept, they had trouble nursing, latching, they have a flat spot on one side of their head where they're constantly, they were looking towards the right side when they would sleep. Um, they had reflux, spitting up, all of these different things. Basically, if your baby, when they were a baby, were not eating, sleeping, or pooping effectively, then something was imbalanced with their central nervous system because the central nervous system runs the show. It controls eating, sleeping, and pooping. So if the baby is fussy, tense, rigid, restricted range of motion, torticollis, any of those things, that is a sign the perfect storm is starting to brew. That is a hidden sign that the nervous system is shifting towards an imbalanced state, which again is a precursor towards a diagnosis later on in life because kids don't grow out of colic. They don't grow out of reflux or constipation or torticollis. They grow into another health event. They grow into, from a stressed out, fussy, colicky baby, they grow into a chronically sick kid where they get chronic ear infections and sinus issues and digestive issues. And then from there, they grow into a kid that starts developing some of the symptoms that we associate with a diagnosis, outbursts, meltdowns. They have, food aversions, texture bothers them, the tag on their shirt irritates them, they don't like to put socks on, all of these different things just continue to evolve and brew and brew and brew. And then you as a parent start noticing some of these more common symptoms at this point. But it was the stress from pregnancy to birth to infant that started that process, and it's overlooked because no one has ever told you to look for it. And that just keeps building until now we have a diagnosis. So the good news is that neurologically focused chiropractic care is something that can reverse that perfect storm. If we can go all the way back to, okay, we know that there was a stressful pregnancy, we know that there was a stressful birth, we know that there was, chronic ear infections. Those are all signs and clues that there's an imbalance to the central nervous system. Then we have our technology in our office that we can measure that. We can measure stress and tension on the nervous system in a very non-invasive way with our insight scans. And those insight scans are measuring stress and tension on the nervous system, and they're measuring something called heart rate variability, which measures the nervous system's balance. Is the nervous system stuck in fight or flight? Is it have a good balance? Is it stressed out? We can measure all of those things. And once we measure and we find that the nervous system is imbalanced, in fact, imbalanced, then as chiropractors, we can very safely and gently, with neurologically focused chiropractic care, work to balance that nervous system. And when you balance the nervous system, when you take an imbalanced nervous system, regardless of the diagnosis, and you balance it, good things are going to happen. We're not here to treat symptoms. We're not here to treat your diagnosis. We're here to balance the central nervous system. And when the nervous system is balanced, we start to notice the body starts to respond. We start to notice better sleep. Kids start to sleep better. We start to notice better control with emotions and emotional behavioral regulation. We start to notice changes in their digestion and immune challenges and all these other things that are associated along that perfect storm timeline that we just talked about. So all of these things are a little sneak preview of what we talk about in greater detail at our sensory or at our Perfect Storm workshop. So I invite you on April 30th at Havana Coffee Shop to sign up. Come on in. It's a free event. We buy your coffee. You get free coffee and drinks. And we sit there. It's about an hour long, and I go through all of this stuff in detail. And I invite you to come to that, bring a friend, share this link, and I'm very excited to meet you at this event and dig into greater detail on this topic. So thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you at the workshop.